There are 1 million recipes on my channel for lamb curries in various iterations, but this is the first time I've actually used mutton. It's always like opening a present. Mutton is the traditional red meat that we'd eat in family homes. The difference between lamb and mutton is that lamb has, particularly Australian lamb, has a redder flesh. It's a much larger animal. It's quite a lot sweeter.
It's like a classic Kashmiri mutton, so it needs to be some size.
It's a beautiful meat, but not quite as delicate as mutton. Mutton has a subtler flavour and it's smaller as an animal and more tender. Shivani and I went to her preferred butcher this morning to have him cut the mutton fresh for us. So he's picked a shoulder, and the shoulder is about 1 kilo, and we've had him cut it on the larger size pieces with the bone intact where it can be. The bone is important when it comes to these traditional style recipes because 1, it helps hold the meat together. 2, it actually contributes a really strong element of structural taste to the dish as well. The cooking process, we're going to pressure cook it and we are going to brown it, maybe not as extensively as we would in a traditional for a Rogan Josh, or which gets a really long browning process. In hotter, humid climates, the richness of the browning contributes to weight in digestion. So just trying to lighten it up a little bit. We're pairing this with cauliflower. The cauliflower is one we bought at the HAL market the other day. So beautiful cauliflower, nice creamy florets, and they're nice and tight. Not a lot of markings on there. So when it comes to buying beautiful cauliflower, you want it to look well held together. It shouldn't be going to flour or going to seed and sort of separating out. So divide up the florets. Keep some size in there. Because we do cook a lot, we cook our food, so the cooking process is quite extensive. So we start with the produce a little on the larger side because it will cook down. I want to make sure it's just not going to break apart. So I'm going to julienne some ginger. So culturally, Ammi, our grandmother, would only eat mutton. So very traditionally in Kashmiri Hindu homes, even chicken was considered an unclean meat. Beef's not eaten. Fresh fish is on the menu if it's accessible, but mutton is the prime protein. I have a long history eating goat and lamb. I just absolutely love it. Like I would eat it every day if I could. So we're going to start by browning. I'm going to use this pressure cooker because it's easier to brown in. So you see it's got like a really wide open base, so that makes my job easy. So just before I move across to the stovetop, I did want to talk to you about spice for this. I am a maximalist quite often when it comes to taste. So I love these dishes because they allow me to build in a really complex garam masala of whole spice into the base of the dish. And then whatever I add on top of that, by the end of the browning process, this mutton is already so intensely beautiful. So I'm going to be working with bay leaf, green cardamom, cinnamon, clove, and a little bit of hing. There are 2 easy tips to enhance the flavour of your mutton curry with no effort. So the first one is to use more than 1 fat in the browning process. So I'm going to use mustard oil, ghee, and a bit of yogurt, which will come a little bit later. The second step, or the second piece of easy advice, is to brown the meat really well. Now I'm going to show you what that browning process looks like. Browning meat in many Indian traditions is a long process that is protracted by addition of yogurt or curd and water to keep little bits of liquid in the pan sort of to prolong that browning process. It's not a sear, it's quite different to searing meat and sealing in flavour. What we're actually wanting to do is create a tension in the meat and to also provide a very rich crust of caramelisation on the outside. So into this, I'm going to put bay leaf. Clove's quite strong. I'm going to say 5. I know Shivani doesn't love cinnamon, but I do, so. And then some elaichi, which I'm going to crack. And a star anise. And a little hing now as well. And some salt at this point. It was about a half a teaspoon. So I want this to become hot and aromatic. It already smells amazing. Why we put whole spice in at the beginning in hot oil is it has enough surface area that it doesn't burn. A lot of powdered spice can't really be added at this point because the heat in the oil instantly combusts all of the aromatic content in that beautiful powdered spice. Not only does it lose its character, but it actually brings a burnt taste to the base of the dish. So this is an aspect of cooking quite particular to a lot of Kashmiri food, which is where we add yogurt and curdle it, actually. So just to move it away from the steam. So what you can see is happening is the yogurt splits and you're left with this sort of floating milk solids. Let me add the fresh ginger. Then those milk solids are going to coat and caramelise on the outside of the mutton itself. It doesn't want to be moved too much because I do want it to actually stick and start to caramelise before I add more yogurt and a little bit of water. That smells good. And we want it to be at high temperature so it's not stewing, it's browning. Stewing creates a different tension in the meat, and because masala plays out through the protein, the taste is quite different through a stewed meat than it is through browned meat. It is getting smoky in here, just so you know, like it's like I've got a filter on the... So the other reason we brown in the pan is that all of the browned pieces that get left behind on the sides, once we then pressure cook, which is the next step, nothing's lost. All of those bits that have stuck to the pan are released via the pressure and they're collapsed back into the dish. So don't be afraid if it does take a little time to start browning. What's happening here is I like to add salt at this point, and what that does is it draws moisture out of the meat, and so all of the liquid in the goat, and it is such a young tender animal, there's quite a lot in there, starts to come out into the pan. So once this process is completed and that begins to cook down and caramelise and evaporate, the browning process starts in earnest. See, there we go, that's what we're looking for. See that? Moving it a little bit, and you can actually taste it now, like taste that gravy. Oh, it's already delicious. For me, this is the benefit of using so much whole garam masala and that little bit of salt and hing in the browning. So to keep the browning process going, just adding a little more curd. I keep water on standby just in case I need extra, but why we add yogurt to brown, there's a few reasons. Yogurt has an acidic quality that actually works to tenderize protein. It's another fat, and it's a dairy-based fat, so it has this very delicious, creamy, cool quality that it builds into the masala. And as we pointed out earlier, when the yogurt curdles when it first hits the oil, is that it works as actually like a caramelized coating across that mutton as well. If you are dairy intolerant and yogurt's a no-go for you, dairy-based yogurt, you could use sheep's milk yogurt, you could use coconut yogurt, you could use a little coconut milk. Third time around. I'm going to try it again. It's richer. The yogurt hasn't cooked down quite yet, the latest edition. This is quite cool and fresh actually, which I know sounds like a contradiction in terms, but I promise it's not. So while that's just finishing its browning, I am going to add the cauliflower in at this point. This needs to be just a little finer. I'm going to finish with powdered spice. The salt's actually pretty good, but I'm just going to add a little bit extra because we are going to add some more water to cook. And I'm going to, so a quarter of a teaspoon of salt, around a teaspoon of red chilli, 2 teaspoons or so of cumin seed, coriander powder, and I'm going to finish with fennel powder, 2 teaspoons, and ginger powder, that Kashmiri duo, ginger and fennel, a little bit of water. If I wasn't filming this, I would actually cook it in a deeper pressure cooker, but just so that you can see what's going on, I'm cooking it in this shallow vessel. Ideally, I would cook it in a deeper pressure cooker because this is quite full now, and pressure cookers work a little more effectively if you do leave more room for the steam to do its work on top of the dish, but it'll be okay, she says, famous last words. So finish with a little milk, a little water, a little curd. I want there to be a volume of water so that the food's no longer sticking as it's cooking, because once the lid goes on and it starts to cook under pressure, if it's already sticking, if there's not quite enough liquid in there, the meat and the cauliflower and the masala will just catch on the bottom and instantly burn, which would be a shame. Okay. Now it's going to take a couple of whistles and then I'll turn it down to a gentle putter for around 15 minutes. Let it release on its own and then we'll open it up and I'll show you the goods. We've let it cook for around 20 minutes and depressurized. Let's have a look. It's always like opening a present. It smells amazing. It smells like home. Oh, good. The meat's very tender. Let me be a bit Roman about it. Oh, it's so tender and really sweet and fresh. It's very subtle spicing. Yeah, it's delicious. Garam masala does most of the heavy lifting in terms of spice. If you love heat, it could take more chili, like it could take a teaspoon again, but I like it quite subtle. On the cauliflower, some of it's broken down a little, so it adds to the richness in the gravy. And we're gonna eat this for lunch with plain chow rice and roti.